I'm Sharaad Kuttan and welcome to Let's Talk, the show that brings you the most important conversations of the day. Now today we're going to be talking about tradition and modernity. I'm here at the National Museum of Singapore for the launch of ENTWINED. Maybank Women Eco-Weavers meets Southeast Asian artists, also here for an MOU signing between Maybank Foundation and the Singapore National Heritage Board. This is to support curatorial research into Southeast Asian textile weaving. Now join me on my little adventure. I'm here with Maybank Foundation CEO, Sharaad Kuttan. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Tell us a little bit about Maybank Foundation. What exactly does it do beyond this wonderful exhibition that's been put on?
Yeah, thank you. Maybank Foundation is a corporate responsibility arm of the Maybank Group. We have been mandated to positively impact communities in the countries that Maybank operates in. Now that's a huge call for us because Maybank is actually operating in nearly 20 countries around the world. Yes? And we are present in all of the 10 ASEAN countries. But it has been made easy because the mandate comes with great clarity. Maybank has made a decision, approved at the board level, that 1% of its net profit will be contributed to community efforts.
Well, that's huge. How much is that in absolute terms?
Yeah. So we're talking about Maybank having a net profit of 8 billion ringgit. So about 80 million ringgit goes toward community efforts. We get a big chunk of that. There are certain other areas that the money is put to. But what comes to Maybank Foundation, we put it on the ground, largely in terms of community efforts, environment, education, arts and culture, and so on. But increasingly, a lot of our work is into community empowerment efforts. And Maybank Women Eco-Weavers is one such program. We have a few other programs, like whereby we empower and enhance the ability of disabled people to start a business and make a living, and that's a big program as well. That's called ARISE, which stands for Rich Independence and Sustainable Entrepreneurship. We've trained about 6,400 people in 4 countries across Southeast Asia. But for the exhibition today is called ENTWINE, Maybank Women Eco-Weavers meets Southeast Asia. We're very proud of this because it addresses a few complex social issues regionally. When we looked at what do we need to do, which groups of people are slipping between the cracks, because we do not want to go into an area whereby there's a lot of help already in place. We wanted to see what we can do that will create the most impact and that will leave behind a sustainable and a legacy for this community.
Impact that you want this program to have in the long term. What exactly is Maybank Foundation most interested in?
We'll be happy when we see the success through a few proxies. Number one, when we know for sure that the art, the culture has evolved into industry that will be thriving, that the tradition will not be lost. That in Cambodia, we know for sure that there will exist to be young women who continue with this tradition, which is hundreds of years old. When we are happy to see that in Malaysia, the songket in Sarawak will not just be seen in books and in the libraries. That's one of the key proxies. Number two, when we know we've established enough local economies that these women weavers are already thriving, that in turn they are able to employ other people or teach other people and create their own little mini economies. Those are the 2 major proxies. But ultimately, in the short term, I would like to bring this to the world. I'm happy if we can bring this exhibition beyond Southeast Asia to Europe, to the United States, create more awareness and see what we have to offer here in Southeast Asia together as ASEAN.
Wow, I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Okay.
I'm with the curator of ENTWINED, Khairuddin Hori. Let's start with the beginning. I mean, you work within the field of contemporary art, and crafts are often seen as so different from Why did you get involved in putting this together?
First of all, it all started from the introduction of Maybank Foundation to us, to me, and it all started off with just chatting over coffee, and they had ideas, and they wanted to engage this tradition with art and artists, and they were asking like, how can we do it? How can we do it well, aside from the usual like, let's do a fashion show because it's textile, so what else can be done? And for me personally, art and culture in Asia has never been detached. It's always part of it. Contemporary art in Asia always is connected to a certain spirituality, certain ritual, certain tradition. And I felt, as much as textile is often looked upon as being traditional, it could also be very contemporary. The techniques are still being used today by contemporary artists. So that was how we had this idea. Why not send contemporary artists for immersion programs, at the villages? And originally the idea was for the artists to understand the process and then probably design a limited edition design, for these textiles, and then we could promote these new designs as a collaboration between weavers and artists. So that was how it started.
Right, so the idea was to bring a contemporary sensibility into traditional design. Was that? I do want to ask you, you have a background yourself as a practitioner. How many contemporary artists actually look at traditional arts and crafts as a resource for their own art making?
Well, a lot actually, especially in Asia. If you are familiar with, for example, the Japanese group Team Lab, that are very technologically advanced, every piece of their work is based on Japanese tradition, ancient tradition. A lot of contemporary artists look back to tradition in order to further their work. So, as an example, one of our artists, one of the first artists, Malaysian artist Sharaad Kuttan, we sent him to Padang for the first immersion program.
Padang in Sumatra.
And he got the shock of his life, on the process of actually designing a new pattern, because it is so mathematical, and he was intrigued also because his work is in geometry. And then it was so stressful for him because he had to design the new textile pixel by pixel. So pixel being a relatively new terminology. You don't have pixel, this word, when they first started weaving, right? But that was the process that he had to go through in order to design new fabrics. So,
well, who do you think, benefits most from a process like this? The traditional weavers or the visual artists who come and perhaps extract something? And there's always a whiff of, exploiting the cultural resources of, especially marginalized peoples for purposes that they will never benefit from.
I think they both benefit. From what I've seen, all of the villages that the artists have been to, they continue to have relationship with the artists. They actually communicate on WhatsApp. Sometimes the weavers, they might have problems not related to the art, and then they will ask the artist, like, what do you think I should do? Can you help me? These are problems beyond the art and the craft. So they develop actual relationships, and I think they learn to appreciate each other, because we are not really, it's not as if the artists come out of the program and start selling a lot of work and becoming famous, because it's more like an appreciation. And this is why when we exhibit them both together. Right.
Okay, one last question, and this has to do with the MOU that's going to be signed between Maybank Foundation and the Singapore Heritage Board in sort of curatorial research around these traditions. What's exciting about that? The prospect of actually getting down to doing research?
Well, I think this is a very unique MOU that they're going to sign, because normally partnerships between institutions and corporations, it's literally financial transaction. But in this time round, the corporate is actually bringing knowledge to the museum. And I think this is really new for me as well, and it is very exciting where they can both share knowledge amongst themselves, amongst their recipients, their direct recipients like the weavers and artists, also with the public. So there's many tiers to this. It is very rare that such things happen, and I am excited at the thought of the heritage board curators, next probably will go to the immersion programs, maybe with our artists, with the weavers, and they could become interlocutors or mediators of ideas and a better understanding of what's happening beyond the village, or how we could preserve the heritage, and the differences between the different style of weaving, for example, from the different areas. So many things, to uncover. But definitely a really, really good start.
Right. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Sharaad.
I'm with Sharon Chin, a Malaysian visual artist of some note. She, in fact, was just on the show with Tugu Kita. Thanks, Sharon, for being with us. Again, the question I've asked many of the artists is why get involved in a project that takes somebody like you with a contemporary practice and your background into something like craft, which is often seen as quite separate from the contemporary art world.
I've always loved textiles. Yeah, that's the thing, and I've used textiles a couple of times in my artworks. So when
like painting on flags and that kind of stuff.
Exactly, painting on flags, cutting up flags, sewing them back together. So this opportunity, to get like a first-hand view into how the textiles themselves are actually woven, I couldn't say no.
Right, and what did you learn that you didn't expect to learn, as it were, from this experience?
That weaving is the most subtle of arts. It's like high, to me it's like high abstraction, as high as mathematics actually. So actually experiencing how the design is programmed on the loom, and it's all by memory, but you have to abstract the pattern in order to weave it thread by thread. So that was the thing that really struck me and blew my mind. The other thing was the sheer amount of human time in a piece of weaving. That's really amazing. So every single thread has passed through the fingers of the weaver, and that, to witness that, is truly was really amazing.
Now, you went to Lombok in Indonesia. Had you yourself in the past kind of engaged with weavers in Malaysia, because there's also a project in Sarawak with weavers? What's been your relationship to the traditional crafts?
I haven't really engaged with the craft of weaving, so that's why this was the first time. So usually my experience of textiles is very much about reclaiming textiles that have already been used. So not really, I've never seen how they're made, especially in this traditional hand woven.
Why is it that when often people talk about craft, it's seen as somehow lesser in terms of kind of an intellectual effort? You already begin to kind of explore that, and earlier you said that it's mathematical in the design. Why do you think crafts has become devalued in our society?
Well, to me, I think it's because it's women's work. It's a very straightforward answer, and I think that's why it isn't taken seriously. But when you see it for yourself, like a piece of weaving is almost, you have to learn to read it like a painting. And if you look at the high modernist works, abstract works like Mondrian, and you look at a piece of weaving, the subtlety compared to a painting, like a Mondrian, I think is comparable, or, well, to me, it's even more sophisticated.
Right. I mean, sometimes when we think of crafts and things that we think of its application, meaning it's cloth to be used to make handbags and to make things. Is that the best way to appreciate the work that these weavers do? To think of them as just material for other things and making of other objects?
No, not at all. I think cloth, to me, the practice of weaving, as well as the piece of weaving itself, it's about the stories that are woven into the motifs, into the design. So if you don't know the stories that the motifs are trying to tell, it's like looking at a painting you can't read, or looking at something that you don't know the code of. So you cannot decipher what that piece of weaving holds. So you have to know that. And I think that's how we should approach the craft of weaving, and how to read textiles.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Sharaad.
Hi, I'm with Lyle Buencamino. He's one of the artists participating in the exhibition entitled ENTWINE. Lyle, tell us, how did you get involved in this project, which kind of brings traditional weaving craft and kind of contemporary art practices together?
Right. So I had a solo show, my first solo show in Singapore with Chan Hori, and then had a good working relationship after that. And then they invited me to.
Chan Hori is a gallery.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Kai, the curator, who is the curator of this as well, invited me to, if I would like to do a residency in, to interact with the weavers and
Right.
stuff. And I'd never done anything like that before, so I was like, shit.
Yeah, tell us about that. I mean, what exactly was the experience? Because a lot of contemporary artists don't relate to necessarily to a craft tradition that their country might have, right? And the Philippines has, of course, a very strong craft tradition.
Right.
Did your own practice ever engage with the craft traditions of the Philippines?
My own practice.
Yes.
So I work primarily in painting and like found objects. So in the beginning, I was reluctant as part of the reason why I accepted, because it's something that is very off from like what I normally do. So I thought I should do it.
So what did you come up with at the end of the day? So back here we see some of your work, which is these textiles knotted together across the scaffolding. What is the idea here?
So the idea, in a nutshell, was like I was trying to engage this, just this general feeling I had, because I knew I didn't want to do certain things with them because of the short amount of time. So I didn't want to engage them, make them work heavily for this project. So I was trying to look for another angle. The angle would be like, I was trying to have a sense of humor about this feeling I had of like, just this knee jerk of like, I just want to get out of here, I want to run away from this situation. And then I started thinking about, when you tie bed sheets together to escape, like it's more of a cinematic, rendering of that image of tying bed sheets. But it doesn't work, it's a dangerous thing.
But the textiles do echo with the song kit that actually is there, right? So you were taking some of the traditional designs, motifs, and using it in the textile.
Yeah, so about that, it was like, because in Tanoti is where I saw this pattern, and then it didn't register with me right away, but then it's when I went around the town, because we had to stay there for 5 days, so I had to go around. And I saw the similar pattern in the museum, which was actually quite a relevant pattern to the area, because it was the pattern of the Rani, like a gift to the Rani. And the Rani being the queen. The Rani of Sarawak at the time, the wife of James Brooke.
Right.
Which had like for me like an interesting was an interesting thing about the place is their relationship with this Raja and this Rani, and the Rani's relationship with local textile. So I thought of like using the image of it, and then this idea of like an original image, and then this they actually made a replica of it. They borrowed the original to make this replica, and then I thought that I would make a replica of the replica, or like a cheaper cheaper version, and then like just mass produce it and then just tie it together. So
wonderful. Because one of the things about traditional textiles is that they're not mass produced, right?
Yes. And they're very beautiful, and then they're really difficult to make, and then I just thought it would be funny just to print it out,
Okay. Thank you so much for talking.
Thanks.
Okay. I'm here with Aluga Syllabus. He's from Jogja, Indonesia. He's one of the participating visual artists. He was sent to Cambodia. I'm really excited to find out why you thought this was going to be a beneficial project for you, the collaboration between you and traditional weavers.
First thing is, as an artist, I really love to work with the people, especially the local people, because on my daily practice, I'm working alone in my studio, only with my team. But then when I have a challenge to work with the local people, it's give me experience and also a learning process also for me, and there's many value that is a more is a many value like not just about the material, but it's also about you can know the culture, the knowledge, even the spiritual. Yeah.
Right. But so you were sent to Cambodia and you participated in a project there. Were issues of language a barrier or cultural differences? How did you make sense of those differences?
Yeah. First, when I first came, I see them. Then I ask them about how they live, the story, and then I connect with my design. Yeah, even my design is from their own story actually. They inspiring me actually. So then I was as an artist, we inspiring from many things. But then when I come to Cambodia, there is the culture, the social, the local people. There is ladies that bring up the economy, took the Maybank. They because not many women want to work again with the women. They're just going to do the
factory work,
and then and then Fanta, she's working hard to bring up the economy, and it's inspiring me. And also the design of my weaving is inspiring by them, because I asking what is the very good story in here. They said morning star. Yeah, they have design morning star. And I said, what is morning star? They said, when the people going to work before the star go, before the sun come. So it must be early morning. So now can you imagine now the young generation, that wake up at 10 a.m. and nothing. So I said, wow. So this design is morning star. It's like you see the.
So you created a fabric. And you designed it yourself. It's not traditional.
No, it's a mix. This is the paddy, yeah, the rice field, and this it is star, Yeah. This is the star, the paddy, and the gate is also when actually it's like a story. You part the paddy, start walking paddy, and you got this, and you harvest. So this is the harvest.
So there's a narrative in your work.
Yeah.
And so when you left this project, I mean, do you work often with traditional crafts people in your work, in your own practice? Is Indonesian craft, for instance, something that you go to for inspiration?
Yeah, I'm on my practice in art. I'm working with local people also in Yogyakarta. They make my sculpture. I make the ceramic also. But I also, before, I think this is the most challenging, because before I work with some modern brand, like the shoes. I cannot mention the brand, but I design also for the brand. It's a famous brand of shoes, and also the helmet and some dress. But this is more, there's a process that very intense. You're not just use the artist's picture to part, but I can feel the local spirit. Yeah.
All right, wonderful. Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay. Well, that's all we have for you today. This has been a show taken at the ENTWINE Maybank Women's Eco-Weavers Meet Southeast Asian Artists exhibition at the National Museum of Singapore. All we have for you for this episode of Let's Talk. Join me again next week. I'm Sharaad Kuttan, only for Astro AWANI.